Is it time? It is time. Here we go. You are, wow, okay, it is officially there. That's up. All those things going over. Well, then I guess I will switch this button and say, hi, good morning. Welcome to the live taping of Podcast Pontifications. My name is Evo Terra. Thanks for joining me here today. If you are brand new, you are watching a live taping. This is not the actual podcast itself. This is the process I go through to make the podcast, and you are in the middle of the process right now because I looked up and went, holy cow, it is at least 10 minutes later than I want it to be. So I had to slam out a few things. I don't know what I've forgotten to do. Hopefully not much. I think things are working, but you never know. Hey, the great news is you can skip all this preamble-y stuff and just go to podcastpontifications.com because that's where the final product, which I assure you will sound great, and also read great. All that will be there at 10 a.m. Phoenix, Arizona time. It is currently 7 o'clock, so in 3 hours, you can have that live at Podcast Pontifications. But hey, if you're here and you've got a free 15 minutes, hang out with me. I'm going to kind of go through little warm-up exercises and just kind of get my throat working the way I want it to for the first 2 or 3 minutes. Just say some chit-chatty type things. Say hello to people who are in the Restream chat, like Kevin Patton. Good morning, Kevin Patton. Thank you very much, Kevin Patton, for the lovely review. I'm going to mention that review on the show. Just realize, why the hell don't I do that? You know? Why don't I do that? So I'm going to do that. Yes, indeed I am. So again, thank you, Kevin. So Kevin's watching me on LinkedIn. You can also see this on Twitter or YouTube or Facebook. And all of them, in theory, will funnel your comments right here to me. Like Robert Ingalls, who's also watching on LinkedIn, he just said, Unique New York. I don't know why you said Unique New York, but I'm glad you did. Whatever you can put those chats through. And at least during this warm-up period for me, the pre-show, if you will, I will see those comments. Now, one thing I didn't check to see is how loud is the audio. I didn't adjust it from yesterday, so that looks like it's coming pretty good. Let me check QuickTime. I use QuickTime to record the audio because it gets a much higher quality signal. And that looks pretty good. Yeah, I'm peaking when I talk really loud, but that's okay. I've got digital declipping that can get rid of that. So I think that is good sound-wise. Where did it go? Move it back over there. Excellent. Yeah, OBS is the software that I use to handle all the stuff, like the graphics and things. Remember this graphic I showed you earlier? Remember this? Hang on. Remember this? Yeah, that's what happens earlier. OBS does that for me, shoves it out to Restream, and does a very good job of pushing out the live feed. But the audio quality of OBS and Restream is not perfect. But if I also capture it with QuickTime, which is built into every Mac, and I use a Mac Mini as my studio computer, it captures a much higher quality audio. So, you know, it's a few extra steps, but it does provide a much higher quality content because I'm going to take all the things I'm about to say. Video goes up to Allie so she can process the video to get it posted later on today. But I'll take the audio from the QuickTime and run it through Isotope RX8, the standard edition, which is an extremely powerful tool, and make me sound even better than I do right now. All the little mouth clicks that you are hearing, all those are gone. Background noise, gone. Just sounds great. Takes work, but not a huge amount of work. It sounds pretty good. So all that is going to happen, and that's going to be available over there. Today's topic, since I'm rambling here, today's topic is, do old people listen to podcasts? Yes, we do. That's the title. That's the topic. End of show. No, I'm kidding. There's more things to say inside of there. Had a fun conversation last night with some of the people in the advancing podcasting community when I brought up the idea that, hey, I'm going to have to talk about this. That was a lot of fun. We a bunch of us other people who are aging were in there chatting. None of the young whippersnappers chimed in too much, which was nice. Got it. Oh, Robert is telling me that Ron Burgundy's vocal warm-up in Anchorman was unique New York. Oh, all right, if you say so. Tom Webster, I'm using some of your data right here, sir. Everything I'm going to say today, if I get the numbers wrong, you can blame Tom Webster from Edison Research. Tom, I apologize. I'm making a lot of inferences. You probably have access to the real data, so if anything is really, really wrong, I assume you'll tell me. You're good for that. Okay, well, I think the voice is as warm as the voice is going to get. Let me pull up the... Normally, I have read through my script a couple of times before I do this. Not today. Not today, because did I mention that I looked up and went, oh, shit, I've got 10 minutes to do the show? Yeah. All right, so as I am wont to do... I'm going to read the cold open. Yesterday, for fun, since I'm still in pre-show... Thank you, Tom. Yesterday, since I'm still in pre-show mode, I'll tell you this. I had the same problem yesterday. I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to go. I got to get the show out and live. And I wasn't too terribly late, but I had forgotten to add an extra space on my outline. I just use Google Docs in a regular text format, but I put an extra space at each line break to give a little, space. And I didn't do that. So I'm reading my script and it's not spaced out the way it's supposed to be. It's like, oh, that really hurt my brain. So yesterday's show was extremely fast talking for me, and I am already an extremely fast talker. And it's all because I didn't have the extra space at the bottom of the line. But today I have the space at the end of the line. So, all right, so here's the cold open. Podcasting is often touted as a way to reach a younger, hipper demographic. But that ignores the millions of people 55 and older who listen to podcasts today with different habits and content preferences. At least that's what I'm assuming. All right. Why is that in studio mode? I don't know why that's there. Okay, let's not push that button anymore. So, okay. All right, so we're good there. We're good here. I think I'm good to go. Here we go. Beginning the process. Podcasting is often touted as a way to reach younger and hipper demographic. No, change the way I say that. Let's use the word A in there, Evo. Sorry, Allie. Podcasting is often a way... No, god damn. All this gets edited out. It's good news. Podcasting is often touted as a way to reach a younger, hipper demographic. But that ignores the millions of people 55 and older who listens to podcasts today. Who listens? Jesus, I'm never going to get this show done. Sorry, Allie. Podcasting is often touted as a way to reach a younger, hipper demographic. But that ignores the millions of people 55 and older who listen to podcasts today with different habits and content preferences. Hello and welcome to another Podcast Pontifications with me, Evo Terra. I've been thinking about a slide from Edison Research's The Infinite Dial 2021 report that showed strong growth in the 55 and older listening crowd to podcasts. That's now up to an estimated 24 million Americans, which is up big time from like 4 million a decade ago. 20 more million people 55 and older are listening to podcasts today than were a decade ago. A lot can happen in a decade. Related to that, a few days ago we lost Ed Asner at 91. Ed, if you're unfamiliar, was most known for his role on the Mary Tyler Moore Show, which ran from 1970 to 1977. If you remember the show at all, or were subjected to it, perhaps by your parents or grandparents who like to watch reruns, you remember that Ed's character of Lou was the grumpy old man on the show. Old man. Ed Asner was in his 40s the entire time that show aired. I'm older than Ed Asner was during the taping of the Mary Tyler Moore Show. So let's get back to podcasting, because all of this ties in together. We tend to think of podcasting as something that is young and hip and attracts the youngsters and the hipsters, I guess. And yes, for truth, it actually is. Just today, there was a report out by Westwood One showing the median age of podcast listeners is just 34. But remember that slide I mentioned from the Edison Research deck? There are a lot of not 34-year-olds listening to podcasts, and their number is growing every single year. Now, I'm going to make a lot of inferences here on just a couple of the graphs in that report. And with those inferences come 4 bits of insight, I think, that warrant the attention of podcasters like you and me. The 55 and older podcast listening crowd have more discretionary time. If we look at this same report, Edison Research's The Infinite Dial 21 report, the middle group, the 35 to 54-year-olds, they actually went down as a percentage. The percentage of listeners of that age group that listen to podcasts on a monthly basis, that actually went down from 20 to 21, likely because of the pandemic problems. A lot of key listening time for that age group, like commuting back and forth to work and going to the gym, well, a lot of that went away. But for the 55 and older crowd, same time frame, they actually grew by 4 basis points year over year. And yes, I do understand that many people in the 55 and older crowd do have jobs and do commute and go to the gym, but many of them actually are further along in their careers and have a lot more flexibility than some of the youngers. Also, that 55 and older bucket is big. It covers a lot of retired and semi-retired people who don't do the normal things like listen in the morning on the commute and listen on the way home on the commute. They don't follow normal listening practices because their behaviors change when you retire or semi-retire. So if this group, this 55 and older group, which is growing, if that's bucking that trend, what other best practices or assumed behaviors of podcasting are they bucking and you're not aware of? Second interesting thing I note is that 55 and older podcast listeners is by far not a monolith. You realize that between 55 and, let's just say 100, that's 45 different ages. And the difference between a 55-year-old and a 7-year-old is, not a 70-year-old is vast. That's only 15 years in between there, but still a big difference from someone who is 55 to someone who is 70, generally speaking. Now, I don't have the data to support this. I'm sure Edison does. But it stands to reason that the percentage of listenership across those 45 years, between 55 and 100, it stands to reason that if you plotted out the number of people listening and the percentage of listening in each year, it would be a big power curve, right? 55 would probably be the biggest, or 55 to 56, 70, something like that. And then it would slowly taper off. As the age number gets higher, the percentage likely gets lower. But as time progresses, that fat head you see at 55, 56 will continue to get a little wider and a little wider and a little wider as people continue to, age in. Because that brings me to my third insight here. 24 million today. What is that? 240 million tomorrow? Okay, maybe not tomorrow, but pretty soon. You got to remember, the 35 to 54 year age bracket, the 54s age into the 55 plus every year. And those are people who are listening a lot right now. Magically, when you turn 55, you don't stop listening to podcasts. They're going to keep listening. I've long said that podcasting fails the grandma test, where the blame squarely sits at the feet shared by the distributed nature of podcasting as well as podcast listening app developers. Well, I'm not sure that either of those things are going to change anytime soon because they haven't in 17 years. But my wife, who is also a grandma, has no trouble using the podcast listening app. Not the podcast listening app that came on her phone, the one she purposely installed because she knows it provides a better experience for her. The technologies, the old people in technology problem, if you will, is being solved not because technology is getting better, although I guess you could argue it is, but because tech-savvy people are aging in to those ranges. Also, 55 and older crowd tend to listen to age-specific content. For fun, go look at Alan Alda's podcast, Clear Plus Vivid. I'm not sure why we stopped using the ampersand, but Clear Plus Vivid is the name of Alan Alda's podcast. Look at it on Apple Podcasts. Just use the website. Don't have to worry about installing the program. I'll put a link to it in the episode details. Scroll down to the Listeners Also Subscribe To section, and what do you see? A predominance of shows that are hosted by people in that 55-plus age range. Now, Alan Alda's 85. Katie Couric's show is in there. She's 64. Rob Lowe's podcast is there as well. He's 57. You'll also see WTF by Mark Maron. He's in there too. Well, guess what? Mark's the same age as Rob, 57. It's not all old people stuff. I mean, sure, some of it is hosted by old people, but it's very mainstream. And also, there's a lot of very niche content in there as well. So yeah, old people do listen to podcasts, and we're going to keep they are going to keep listening to podcasts as we become those of who we speak of. Let's do some quick Boostergram cornering, shall we? Pat Cheung from the Pod Inbox, he bought me 15 virtual coffees and says, see you for a real coffee at She Podcast Live. Indeed you will, Pat. Thanks. Looking forward to that. By the way, She Podcast is in October in Scottsdale. If you use the code AZPOD when you register, you'll save like $100 on your ticket. Yeah, go. I'm going to be there. Also, Kevin Patton of Academic Podcasting, he left me a nice review for Podcast Pontifications on Podchaser and said, I love the brief but provocative audio essays that get me thinking outside the box the other podcasting pundits often seem to put us in. Ooh. Even when I disagree with Evo's suggestions, what? I learn from them. Any podcaster who considers themselves creative needs to listen regularly. Thank you very much, Kevin, for that. If you got any value out of today's episodes or any of the episodes I bring to you 4 days a week, please return some of that value, either by using one of the new podcast listening apps that send funds while you listen, or by leaving a review somewhere, like Kevin did, or finally at buymeacoffee.com/evoterra, much like Pat did. That's it. I shall be back tomorrow with yet another podcast Pontifications. Cheers. Recording has stopped there. Recording has stopped here. Going back to see what the chat window looks like. Boom. Okay, good. Nothing terrible, because Tom just said he was watching me, but he hasn't written in to say, you're a moron. Hey, thanks very much for watching this live. If you just tuned in, well, you missed it. You could back up 17 minutes. Or, I mean, sure, if you want to watch that, you can. But here's the deal. This was just part of the process. This was the live recording. I am now going to sit down and make this show live for everyone to see in podcast form. Yeah, it'll be at podcastpontifications.com at 10 a.m. Phoenix time. It is currently 7:17 in the morning, so just under 2 hours and 45 minutes. It will be there. And for the lucky people who have gone to Podcast Pontifications, click the big subscribe button and enter their email address. They will, for free, get the article I'm about to painstakingly rewrite. All those stumbles and weird things that I said, the incomplete sentences, I'm fixing all of that. I'm fixing all of that. And that gets emailed out to everybody, along with a link to the fully edited audio file so you can consume and listen right there in your inbox if that's what you want to do. And yeah, it'll be distributed because that's what I do. Yeah. Okay, that's it. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we shall do this again tomorrow. What do you say? Yeah? Yeah. Bye.